Today on How Do You Hustle, I am joined by Maria Thattil. She's an author, media personality, and former Miss Universe Australia. How are you today?
I'm feeling really good. I'm very excited to chat to you.
So, tell us about how you first started out in the early days of your career.
Well, my career, it's pretty expansive. So, technically speaking, it started off in retail. And I really like to honor that because, when I was in high school, in uni, I worked in retail, in, fashion retail and then beauty retail. And the experience that I got working in a kiosk doing customer service, sales, like literally in the middle of a shopping center talking to people, like you learn, how to quickly build relationships, how to understand your customers, like how to relate to people. And those are skills that I still have in my career now within mainstream media. But I guess, I finished uni, I studied psychology and management. I was working in corporate HR. And whilst I was finishing up my master's and I was, starting to move into HR, I also did a makeup qualification. Social media was sort of just popping off. And I started by, just sharing beauty content that I loved and navigating that space. And every time I'd share a post, I felt very passionately about diversity and inclusion. I always have, because that's my lived experience, right? As a person of color, as someone who's closeted, I've always cared about it. And so I wanted to share my thoughts on socials. And the more I did it, the more it started to build community. So I guess within media, you can say I sort of started off by being a bit of a like an Instagrammer or sharing content or a blogger, if you will. And then I decided to apply to Miss Universe Australia. And I think that's when it really kicked off because once I won and I did it on a campaign of inclusivity, campaigning and speaking up about social and political issues, people started to see me as someone who could. And I put it out there to my team. I did so much stuff for free at the start, pitching articles, writing them, spending hours on it. Sometimes I'd never get picked up, but I wanted to be heard. And it was kind of like a snowball effect. And I talk about it in my book, Unbounded. But, the way I got into television is after Miss Universe. I didn't even get a TV interview when I won. Like, no one really cared. It's not a big pageant country. But I started speaking up on socials. About things that mattered to me, like the fact that I did face racism when I won. So I would get on Instagram and treat that like that's a TV interview, and I would talk passionately about what I care about. And I did that so regularly that eventually I did get a TV interview. I treated that like a job interview. I did my best, and it led to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Eventually, I was offered a TV show, a panelist gig, and now I've started guest hosting on the project. And it's because I guess every time I get these opportunities, I don't take it for granted. I think it all adds to your big, virtual digital resume. And I'm just vocal about what I want, and I work really hard to get it. And with columns and writing a book, that started off by writing captions on Instagram that moved people. And then eventually, Nine Honey wanted me to write for them columns. I started doing that. Penguin saw the columns, they were like, we want you to write a book. So it's just, you just start doing. And I think my career, the thing that has really been, burned in my brain that I want to share with anyone who's listening is you have to start doing and don't wait for someone to give you resources or for things to be perfect. Use what you have. Yeah, and then you iterate and make refinements, then the more that you get. But I really feel if you're putting things out there with what you have, people will start seeing what you're doing, and you will magnetize resources. It happens. So that proved true in my career. And I think that's how I started to break into media. And now I'm here.
I love that. And I love what you say about doing because that's something that strikes me sometimes when I talk to people. They say, oh, you're so lucky that happened to you, certain achievements I've had. And I'm like, it's not luck. It's hard work. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss when they're starting out is that it does take like doing, starting, like you have to have that level of drive and determination to be able to I guess keep going when it's not all just being handed to you and it does take time to build and grow.
100%. 100%. And can I just say on that point, like I've heard that too. where I know that, and I've heard people sort of feed it back to me where they've talked to someone who said, "Oh, but she got really lucky. She won Miss Universe Australia, or she's just it was luck. She was a diversity pick." Like I've literally heard so many comments like this, I can't even tell you. And one thing I really firmly believe is one, it is not your business what other people think about you. Two, unless you are, and am I allowed to swear on this podcast? Unless you are feeding me or financing me in any way, I don't care what you think.
I like that.
And you have to have that attitude because there are going to be a lot of people where, for whatever reason, whether it's to make themselves feel better about the position that they're in or to just sort of make your life more palatable to them or whatever it is, like people might not understand you and they might genuinely think things were handed to you, but you can't focus on what other people's perceptions are. I think you just got to stay focused on creating opportunities for yourself. And so, what you said about, you're so lucky, people have said that to you, and where they've said that to me, rather than focus on trying to buy someone's perception of being hardworking, I'll just quietly work really hard and let the opportunities that manifest speak for themselves.
Love that. Another gem. um, so what are your current kind of focuses in your career? I know you mentioned obviously the writing and the media work, but yeah, what do you enjoy most about what you're doing currently?
I think that all of it's really creative and it's really impactful and meaningful to me. So, across my career at the moment, the different things that I do for work include writing my columns, I have my book out, I do hosting and social commentating on TV. I'm working on another project at the moment that I think is actually going to be my favorite. But what I will say, the thing that I like about all of this and this particular project is I'm so grateful to have been able to curate a career where a lot of what I do is centered on what I believe and what I have to say. And so much of it is tied to causes I'm really passionate about. It's either rooted in diversity or inclusivity or advocacy. And the fact that there's a fun and glamorous and creative element to it, I really like that. And ultimately, what I want to do is build an empire where I get to, one day have my own show. And one day, let us keep this recording because I did this with Miss Universe and with manifesting a book and things like that, but I'm manifesting one day my own show. And so remember when I said the thing about don't wait for resources and things like that, just do it. It's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. So it's that's probably one of my favorite things because it's just like a heart passion thing where it's different to anything people have sort of seen from me. So I'm very excited.
Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you achieving your goals? Regardless if you're dealing with stress or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in this world going through a tough time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. Therapy has always been a useful tool for many of the creatives in my network and is something I'm a huge advocate for. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/HDYH. Is this kind of where, when you were starting out, you saw your career going?
I genuinely thought a corporate career was for me. And I remember I had a manager give me this piece of advice that at the time I didn't agree with, but now I'm kind of like, there was value there. I was doing a commercial internship and I was talking to her about how I felt really creative and entrepreneurial. And she's like, darling, a corporate career is not for you because people who are really creative. And at the time, I think it was at a time where workplaces weren't as flexible. Like I think I was like 22 or 23. I'm like 30 now. And back then, we've had like a bit of a social digital media revolution. Workplaces are trying to let people do a bit of everything. And back then it wasn't. So I really thought I was going to do the corporate thing. And the more I progressed in my career, the more I realized, no, I really want to work for myself. But never did I ever think it was going to be this way. And that's the beauty of just trying everything and being open. I think you have to shed the blueprint a little bit and not be so wedded to your plans because you never know what opportunities are around the corner. And I only won Miss Universe 2 years ago. Like life is so different. I never in a million years would have thought I'd be doing the stuff I'm doing now and living life on my terms and comfortably in the way that I am now. So I am very pleasantly surprised, and I credit it to a work ethic and being open and willing to take risks.